The snow gently covered the steps where Rocky lay curled up, his eyes never leaving the quiet, empty street ahead. How long would he wait for someone who was never coming home? If you've ever felt the warmth of loyalty like this, share with me where you're listening from today in the comments below. Rocky's story is just beginning, and it might touch closer to home than you think. The gentle flickering of fireplace embers cast a comforting glow across the small living room, where Rocky, a 6-year-old German Shepherd with deep, soulful brown eyes and a thick, black and tan coat, lay curled at the feet of his owner, Robert Miller. Robert, a retired high school teacher in his late 70s, was a soft-spoken man with thinning silver hair, warm blue eyes, and hands weathered from a lifetime spent nurturing young minds. Their days were quiet and routine, filled with strolls through the snow-dusted paths of Oakville, Vermont, and evenings warmed by companionship that needed no words. Rocky had grown accustomed to this tranquility, feeling safe in the silent assurances passed between him and Robert through simple glances and gentle pats on his broad head. That particular winter night felt colder, the air heavier. Rocky shifted slightly on the worn carpet, ears twitching occasionally at the faint crackling sounds from the hearth. He lifted his head as Robert slowly rose from his chair, placing his reading glasses carefully atop the stack of faded books on the side table. "Time for bed, Rocky," Robert murmured softly, his voice tired but affectionate. Rocky followed dutifully, Paws patting silently behind him through the dim hallway to the bedroom. But something about Robert's movements tonight seemed slower, strained. Minutes later, nestled at the foot of the bed, Rocky awoke abruptly. The room was unusually still, silent except for the howling wind against the windows. Something felt wrong, a quiet tension that made his heart quicken. Rising to his feet, he turned his attention toward Robert, who lay unusually still beneath the thick quilt, his breathing faint, almost non-existent. Rocky nudged the old man's hand gently, a movement that had always brought a comforting pat or a soft whispered assurance. But tonight, there was no response. Anxiety building, Rocky whimpered softly, pushing his cold nose insistently against Robert's motionless hand. When still nothing stirred, he let out a sharp bark, desperate for any reaction. The next morning, the gentle sun breaking through icy branches revealed neighbors gathering in somber silence outside Robert's home. Rocky paced restlessly at the front door, unable to comprehend the strangers entering and leaving, their faces shadowed with sorrow. Susan Carter, a neighbor in her 60s with gentle eyes and a comforting voice, approached carefully, reaching out to stroke Rocky's fur. "Poor boy," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Robert isn't coming back, Rocky. He's gone." Rocky pulled away instinctively, confusion deepening his pain. Robert had never left him alone for long, certainly never like this, with no goodbye or explanation. The days became blurred, filled with strange faces and hushed voices. When the house finally grew quiet again, Rocky found himself alone, still waiting faithfully at the door, his gaze fixed on the snow-covered street ahead, believing with every beat of his heart that Robert would soon walk up that familiar path. Days passed into weeks, yet Rocky remained steadfast in his vigil, braving harsh winds and freezing temperatures. Neighbors noticed the dog's unwavering loyalty and tried to coax him indoors, their offers met only by gentle but firm resistance. Rocky's quiet determination to wait, no matter how cold or lonely he became, tugged at the heartstrings of the entire neighborhood. Each evening, lights in nearby houses would flicker on, casting sympathetic glances toward the silhouette of the dog who refused to abandon hope. Susan placed bowls of warm food beside him each evening, speaking softly, "Rocky, you're breaking our hearts. You need to come inside." Robert would have wanted that. Rocky's soulful eyes would briefly meet hers, before he turned his attention again to the empty path, waiting, longing, unable to understand how the love that once warmed his world had disappeared overnight. Beneath the gentle snowfall that now blanketed his fur, Rocky remained motionless, determined to stay exactly where Robert could find him, should he ever return home. And in his quiet, persistent hope, Rocky taught the people of Oakville a powerful lesson about loyalty and love that they would never forget. A large red and white "For Sale" sign appeared abruptly in front of Robert Miller's home, a stark reminder of the emptiness now echoing within its walls. Rocky watched cautiously from his position near the doorstep, ears perked forward, his dark eyes wary of the strangers who came and went, measuring and photographing the house. Among them was Patricia Jenkins, the local realtor, a woman in her 50s with curly auburn hair and a sympathetic expression that deepened whenever she glanced toward Rocky. Her voice softened each time she spoke about the house, as if acknowledging the delicate memories still alive within its quiet rooms. Patricia often hesitated by the door, offering Rocky gentle pats and soft whispers of comfort, but she could never coax him away from his chosen spot. Eventually, with a heavy heart, Patricia arranged for Rocky to be moved to a new home with the Anderson family. Jim Anderson, a mechanic in his early 40s with short-cropped brown hair and steady eyes, and his wife Laura, a kind-hearted librarian with shoulder-length blonde hair and a soothing voice, lived in a cozy house across town. Their two young children, Ethan and Hannah, ages 10 and 7, welcomed Rocky warmly, their eyes sparkling with hopeful excitement at the thought of a new furry companion. But Rocky, polite though distant, felt trapped within the unfamiliar walls. He barely touched the food they lovingly provided and spent his nights restlessly pacing from one window to the next, longing to escape. One chilly evening, under the dim glow of streetlights filtering through snowfall, Rocky seized a fleeting opportunity when Ethan left the backyard gate slightly ajar. With a quiet urgency, he slipped out, padding quickly through the snow-covered streets back to his true home. His paws carried him instinctively through familiar alleys and past landmarks engraved deep in his memory. When he finally reached the doorstep of Robert's now empty house, he curled up once again in front of the locked door, exhausted but relieved. This was where he belonged. Morning brought concerned murmurs from the neighbors as they noticed Rocky's return. Susan Carter rushed over, bundled in her thick coat and knitted scarf, shaking her head sadly. "Oh, Rocky," she sighed, her voice gentle yet pained. "You can't stay here forever." Yet, Rocky simply met her gaze calmly, his eyes silently reaffirming his unwavering loyalty to Robert's memory. Word quickly spread across the town of Oakville about Rocky's quiet defiance, touching hearts everywhere. Many residents began to stop by, offering warm blankets, food, and comforting words. Parents told their children Rocky's story, an example of unyielding devotion that both warmed and broke their hearts. Despite the growing attention and constant visits, Rocky remained steadfast, unwilling to leave the doorstep where he last saw Robert. After several more escapes from different homes arranged by concerned townspeople, everyone began to realize the profound truth behind Rocky's persistence. It was not just about physical shelter or safety, it was about honoring a bond, unbroken even by death itself. His remarkable determination quickly captured attention beyond Oakville's quiet streets, bringing journalists from nearby towns who hoped to share Rocky's heartwarming tale of loyalty. One afternoon, Margaret Willis, a young reporter in her late 20s with bright green eyes, freckled cheeks, and boundless enthusiasm, arrived to document Rocky's story. As she approached the front porch, her voice softened, mindful of Rocky's cautious stare. "Rocky," Margaret began gently, crouching beside him, careful not to intrude too closely into his space. "You must truly miss him, don't you?" Her question hung quietly in the crisp winter air. Rocky's ears flicked slightly, sensing the genuine sympathy in her voice. Soon, Margaret's touching account of Rocky's unwavering loyalty became a beacon of hope, spreading far beyond the small community. Letters and messages of encouragement and admiration poured into Oakville from distant towns, each one bringing comfort and strength to the townspeople who had embraced Rocky as their own. Yet Rocky remained humbly unaware of his newfound fame, his heart set firmly upon waiting in patient, faithful silence. Days passed into weeks, yet the power of Rocky's quiet devotion continued to inspire. Even as snow blanketed the town in white serenity, Rocky's presence reminded everyone who passed by of a timeless truth: love, loyalty, and remembrance outlive even the deepest loss, existing quietly in the enduring patience of a faithful friend. It was late February when Sarah Miller returned to Oakville, Vermont, a town she once knew intimately but had long since left behind. Sarah was 34, tall and slender with wavy chestnut hair falling just below her shoulders and thoughtful hazel eyes often shadowed by memories she'd tried to bury. After years spent chasing career opportunities in Boston, coming home was never in her plans, especially not under these painful circumstances. She parked her silver sedan in front of her childhood home, her heart heavy as she stepped onto the familiar sidewalk, now cracked and covered in patches of snow. The old house looked smaller than she remembered. Its once bright shutters faded to a dull gray. Her gaze shifted to the porch, and she felt her breath catch. Rocky lay curled beside the front door, ears perked at her arrival, his eyes cautiously watching as Sarah approached. She hesitated briefly, studying the German shepherd, whose unwavering loyalty had become town legend. Rocky lifted his head slowly, curious yet wary. Though Sarah's scent held traces of familiarity, time and distance had rendered her little more than a stranger to him. "Hey, Rocky," Sarah murmured softly, kneeling carefully to meet his level. Rocky sniffed gently, a spark of recognition briefly illuminating his deep brown eyes. However, he stayed cautious, keeping a respectful distance, uncertain of her intentions. This quiet caution pierced Sarah deeply. She remembered Rocky as a playful puppy, bounding energetically around the yard with her father. Witnessing him now, so patient and solemn, triggered an ache in her chest. Inside the house, silence enveloped Sarah like an old, forgotten blanket. Every step she took echoed with memories, pulling her deeper into the past. Her childhood bedroom remained nearly untouched, adorned with faded posters and old yellowed photographs. She paused in the doorway of Robert's study, the scent of his favorite leather chair still lingering in the air. On the desk, neatly stacked papers and books stood untouched, as though her father had only stepped away momentarily. Sarah's fingers brushed against an old framed photo of herself as a child, smiling joyfully in her father's arms, Rocky at their feet, still a puppy. Emotion overcame her, blurring her vision. How had she let so many years slip by without coming home? Her father had rarely spoken of her absence, respecting her need for space, even when it left a visible emptiness in his eyes. Sarah now realized, with deep regret, that she had missed so much. Rocky's loyalty served as a powerful mirror, reflecting her own neglected love and forgotten obligations. Outside, Rocky had not moved from his vigilant spot. Sarah watched him through the window, noting the sadness in his posture, the hopeful yet tired way he scanned the street. She knew he was waiting for someone who could never return. She felt an overwhelming sense of guilt, realizing that she too had abandoned Rocky, leaving him alone to grieve and wait. Determined to make amends, Sarah abandoned her earlier plans of swiftly selling the house. It felt wrong, she decided, to dismiss the memories contained within these walls so easily. This decision brought an unexpected calmness, a quiet acceptance she hadn't felt in years. She stepped onto the porch once more, gently calling Rocky's name. He lifted his gaze slowly, sensing a change in her demeanor. This time, Sarah reached out carefully, her hand outstretched, offering a silent apology for her absence. After a hesitant pause, Rocky allowed her fingertips to gently stroke his thick fur, their shared grief bridging the gap between them. That night, Sarah sat quietly on the living room couch, her father's old wool blanket wrapped snugly around her shoulders, its familiar scent offering comfort. Rocky cautiously moved closer, sensing Sarah's silent invitation. He settled at her feet, his head resting lightly against her knee. As tears slipped quietly down Sarah's cheeks, she felt grateful for Rocky's presence, a steady and comforting reassurance amid the ache of her father's loss. As the clock ticked quietly, marking the passage of time they both could never recover, Sarah promised herself she wouldn't run away again. She would stay, if only for Rocky, and in doing so, honor the quiet, powerful love her father had left behind. Days turned gently into weeks, each passing moment weaving a quiet, healing bond between Sarah Miller and Rocky. Sarah slowly rediscovered the simple joys of Oakville, guided by Rocky's reassuring presence. Each morning, the German shepherd waited patiently by her bedside, his eyes hopeful, ears perked forward, inviting her into a day filled with gentle companionship. Sarah found herself smiling more, touched by Rocky's persistent yet gentle encouragement to embrace the life she had left behind long ago. As they walked together through Oakville's quiet streets, Sarah noticed the warmth of the townspeople's greetings, something she hadn't truly experienced since her mother's passing. She recalled how, after losing her mother at the tender age of 10, a profound loneliness had settled within her, pushing her to leave the town and its memories far behind. But now, Rocky was gradually bridging the gap she had unknowingly created between herself and the community. One morning, as the sky brightened into gentle shades of blue, Sarah and Rocky strolled toward the town square. They met Mrs. Eleanor Brooks, an elderly woman with soft white curls and eyes always sparkling with kindness, who warmly waved Sarah over. "Sarah," Eleanor said, her voice gentle and filled with genuine warmth. "It's wonderful to have you back home." Rocky nuzzled softly against Eleanor's hand, his calm demeanor effortlessly inviting Sarah to lower her guard. For the first time, Sarah felt genuine gratitude instead of discomfort at the sincere friendliness shown by the townspeople. The nearby coffee shop, run by Joe Mitchell, a cheerful man in his mid-40s with a round face and booming laughter, became Sarah and Rocky's new routine stop. Joe always offered Rocky a small biscuit, laughing heartily whenever Rocky politely sat, paw raised gently as he waited. "Your father always stopped by with Rocky," Joe recalled with a warm smile, eyes twinkling with nostalgia. "Robert had a heart of gold. Seeing you here with Rocky just feels right." Sarah listened, emotions catching softly in her throat, realizing Rocky's presence had somehow allowed her to reconnect with pieces of her father she'd never fully appreciated. Rocky's gentle yet persistent guidance had sparked within Sarah the courage to revisit old friendships as well. One evening, after Rocky's persistent tugging at his leash, they found themselves at the doorstep of Sarah's childhood friend, Emily Bennett, a woman of Sarah's age with short blonde hair, bright eyes, and a laugh Sarah hadn't heard in years. Emily welcomed them warmly, her cheerful voice immediately dispelling Sarah's anxious hesitance. Rocky lay quietly at their feet, his calm, comforting presence subtly encouraging Sarah to open up about years she had spent away, carrying hidden grief and loneliness. As weeks turned into months, Sarah finally understood fully why her father had cherished Rocky so deeply. The dog had an innate gift, a gentle intuition that quietly mended hearts and bridged emotional chasms. Rocky wasn't simply loyal, he was a silent healer, nurturing Sarah's emotional wounds as patiently as Robert had once done for him. One cool spring evening, Sarah sat quietly on the porch steps, Rocky curled at her side, the gentle scent of blooming flowers drifting through the air. The peaceful silence settled comfortably between them, speaking volumes without words. Sarah gently stroked Rocky's soft fur, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, Rocky," she murmured softly, feeling tears gather at the edges of her vision. "You brought me home." Rocky gently shifted closer, pressing his warmth reassuringly against her leg. Sarah smiled softly, her heart swelling with a sense of belonging she'd nearly forgotten existed. Together, they had navigated through sorrow and solitude, reaching a place of quiet acceptance and healing. The bond that had grown between them was built not only upon shared loss but also on newfound hope and quiet courage. As stars began to shimmer softly overhead, Sarah knew the emotional walls she had constructed over years had finally started to crumble. Rocky had quietly, patiently guided her back to herself, just as he had once faithfully waited for her father. In his gentle eyes, Sarah found a powerful truth: healing was possible, love endured, and hope was never truly lost. As the seasons gently shifted from spring to summer, a sense of peaceful acceptance settled over the Miller home. Rocky, the steadfast German shepherd with soulful brown eyes and a calm, patient temperament, had gradually welcomed Sarah Miller into his heart as family. Yet each afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered gently through the trees, he still lay quietly by the door, his ears perked slightly, eyes softly watching the road, honoring a memory he could never let fade. Sarah had grown to understand this quiet ritual. Rocky's unwavering devotion, both to her late father Robert and now to her, inspired her deeply. Her initial plans to sell the old house had faded completely, replaced by a heartfelt desire to create something meaningful in the place she now knew was home. In the early weeks of summer, she began transforming the cozy, sunlit study, once Robert's favorite sanctuary, into a small community classroom. When the renovation was complete, Sarah stepped back, tears gently welling in her eyes. The walls, now freshly painted a calming shade of sky blue, echoed softly with memories and whispered promises. Wooden shelves lined neatly with books, Robert's favorites alongside new selections, invited townspeople into a quiet space of learning and remembrance. Above the chalkboard, Sarah had hung a simple plaque that read, "Robert Miller's Community Classroom," honoring her father's lifelong dedication to education. On the classroom's opening day, the entire town of Oakville gathered quietly outside the house. Familiar faces smiled warmly as they waited in the yard, each heart touched by the quiet strength Sarah and Rocky had shown in the face of loss. Rocky stood patiently beside Sarah, his gentle presence offering quiet reassurance. Sarah spoke softly yet clearly, thanking everyone for their unwavering support and kindness. "This space," she told them with a quiet smile, "is dedicated to my father's memory and to Rocky, who taught us all about love, loyalty, and the courage to heal." The townspeople murmured softly, nodding warmly in agreement. Among them stood young children, elderly neighbors, and longtime friends, each touched in their own way by Rocky's gentle wisdom. Susan Carter, always caring and maternal, smiled warmly, gently wiping tears from her eyes. Joe Mitchell, the friendly coffee shop owner, nodded approvingly, his usual boisterous voice quiet in reverent respect. Eleanor Brooks gently squeezed Sarah's hand, her bright eyes shining with emotion. The community had become whole again, healed by Rocky's quiet devotion and Sarah's newfound strength. From that day forward, Rocky became an ever-present comfort in the classroom, resting quietly in the corner near Sarah's desk. Each evening, townspeople gathered to learn, share stories, or simply find solace among friends. Rocky's calming presence became a steady source of strength for everyone who visited, reminding them silently of the power of patience, loyalty, and unconditional love. Late one evening, after the last guest had left, Sarah gently sat beside Rocky, softly running her fingers through his thick fur. Her heart felt peacefully full, gratitude mingling quietly with the lingering ache of loss. "We did it, Rocky," she whispered softly, her voice gentle but filled with quiet strength. "We turned sadness into something beautiful." Rocky sighed softly in response, shifting gently to rest his head on her knee. His eyes gazed toward the front door, still faithfully waiting for a familiar figure he would never again see. Sarah gently stroked his fur, her voice a quiet whisper of comfort. "I miss him too," she admitted softly, tears gently tracing her cheeks. Rocky lifted his head slightly, his warm gaze meeting hers, silently acknowledging their shared grief and their shared journey toward healing. As the evening deepened into a gentle night, Sarah and Rocky sat quietly together, bound by memories, grief, and newfound hope. Rocky had helped Sarah heal, reconnecting her with the community and the home she had nearly lost. Sarah, in turn, had offered Rocky the gentle comfort and stability of family he had missed deeply. Together, their quiet courage had healed not just their own hearts, but those of an entire town. In Oakville, Rocky's story became more than a memory. He had quietly become a living symbol of loyalty, hope, and the enduring strength of love. Through quiet afternoons and gentle evenings, Rocky continued to wait faithfully by the door, a silent, loving tribute to Robert, whose memory would forever live in their hearts. In the quiet devotion of a dog, we learn love's deepest lessons about loyalty, patience, and the gentle strength in staying by someone's side. Rocky taught us all that true family isn't just about who we're born to, but who we hold close in our hearts. If this story touched your heart, join our community here, where every tale shared reminds us how precious these bonds truly are.